going on? Welcome to Shane Loves Games. I'm Shane, and I love games. Very simple concept for this YouTube channel. I'm going to talk about all the different kinds of games that I like. Be it board games, tabletop role-playing games, video games, card games, you name it, I like it. So, each episode will generally talk about a specific game, or supplement, or add-on, or maybe even a game type. And to kick things off here, as it is January 1st, 2020, I'm going to talk really briefly about my top 5 favorite tabletop RPG book pickups that I got last year in 2019. So without any further ado, this is number 5. Number 5 is Mothership by Tuesday Night Games, available through Exalted Funeral Press. You can check out their website, which the link will be in the description below, and you can pick this one up. This is a simple sci-fi horror RPG. It's very small. That's the whole book. That's all of it. And most of the rules are right on the back there. I'm not going to show too much of the insides of these books, as you might get screenshots and basically spoilers for anything. So I'm going to try to talk about the innards as little as possible, mostly how I feel about each game, and maybe some specific art or mechanics of the game. A really simple game, so as you can see, everything you need to know about it is right on the back here. You are, for lack of a better term, this is kind of Alien the RPG without the without having the license. The building of your character is very simple. There are only a few classes. You can either be a teamster, a scientist, android, or a marine, and basically those give you different bonuses depending on the situation. The funny thing is that androids make you fail fear saves or roll with disadvantage every time because androids are creepy. But this is a very simple system, very fun. Really, the atmosphere is really good. This is very cheap. This is only $15 US regular price. So that's kind of crazy, and it really supports small production companies. This was a big one that I learned through my favorite podcast, which is the Vintage RPG podcast. Shout out to Stu and John Hamble and McGuire. Those guys are really awesome. You should check out their podcast. I'm going to link a couple of episodes in the description as well, some that are key to some of the things I'm going to talk about today. But this is very simple. This also lets you build your own ships, so like the Sulaco, that kind of thing. But check it out, yeah, Mothership, sci-fi horror RPG. Very simple, small book, really easy to get into. Your whole character creation is right on your character sheet. It's just that simple. Number 4, like the Four Horsemen. Iron Anderson, anyways, wrestling. Number 4 is Acquisitions Incorporated, the source book. This is crazy that this got made this year. What is Acquisitions Incorporated, and why does it have a source book in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, which is a fantastic edition? If you have not played D&D in a long time or are new to RPGs, I highly suggest 5th edition. We started playing 5th edition this year, and I'm really, really, really into it. I was a big fan of 3.5. I played 4. 4 is an edition that's out there. 3.5 was my favorite for a very long time. 5th edition is probably my favorite now. It's simplistic, but still gets the job done, and is really catapulted tabletop RPGs into this renaissance that we're seeing now. Acquisitions Incorporated, I would assume, is one of the reasons why Dungeons & Dragons and tabletop RPGs is getting such a resurgence in the last few years. Shout out to Critical Role, that's fine, but before Critical Role was these guys. Acquisitions Incorporated is the tabletop group that the creators of Penny Arcade Comic Expo, also the guys that do PAX, began running at their conventions. And when they first started, it was the two guys from Penny Arcade, Scott Kurtz from PvP, and Will Wheaton, live role-playing with a game master, and it just took off. Now they have several different story arcs all kind of culminating together, and at the big PAX they always do a big production of their Acquisitions Incorporated. What is Acquisitions Incorporated? Acquisitions Incorporated is taking the idea that adventuring can be franchised. So it's basically like McDonald's for being adventuring group. I think it's hilarious. The stats for all your favorite characters from Acquisitions Incorporated are in this book. I think this is fantastic. I am so glad this came out. I'm so glad I got one. It's neat. I don't know if I will ever be able to run a campaign with Acquisitions Incorporated, but the option is there, and I really wanted to support them. I really wanted to have this book, and I really wanted to let them know that Wizards needs to do more stuff like this. Now, they just did a Rick and Morty book. I'm in the minority that I just don't get Rick and Morty, but good for them. I like to see that Wizards is licensing the right things out, as opposed to when TSR had the license, when TSR was running D&D, and they really didn't. This kind of thing just proves that the people who are working at Wizards know their audience, especially with the mass increase of that audience. So this is awesome. If that sounds like something cool, you can check this book out direct through the Wizard site. Again, link in the description below. But I really like this. You can also just Google search on YouTube the Acquisitions Incorporated live plays. They have them from 10 years ago, when Will Wheaton was king of the internet. Like, that's how long these guys have been playing this. So this is awesome. That's great. Number 3, this many, is another Dungeons & Dragons product. Because D&D 5th edition is so great, and I really like it. It's the Eberron Sourcebook that they just came out with just before Christmas. This is like the only thing I really wanted for Christmas. And I got it. Thanks, Santa, a.k.a. my fiance. This is also the special cover that's only available in brick and mortar stores, so that's cool. I'm glad I got this cover. The contents are the same, just a fancy cover. Eberron is a campaign setting that was introduced in 3.5. Right here. And as you can see, I love me some Eberron. If my understanding is correct, the idea behind Eberron was that they had people write in with their homebrew worlds, and they basically picked the best one and made it. Well, Eberron is that campaign, and Eberron is my favorite Dungeons & Dragons campaign setting, just slightly behind Forgotten Realms. I know Forgotten Realms is like the D&D campaign. I just love Forgotten Realms. But Eberron, let's talk about Eberron for a second. So this is the 5th edition book. It has everything that you need to know about Eberron. Eberron is a very, I would call it magic punk, where magic is ingrained in everything. So there are light trains and airships, and it's swashbuckling, noir, magic stuff that happens all the time, and there's Warforged, and I love Warforged. Warforged is so cool. But what happens in Eberron is there was a bloody civil war that's been going on for 100 years, and suddenly there was a big disaster. Nobody really knows what happened. It kind of put everybody back together, and it's been a few years since the Civil War was over, and it's basically all the shenanigans that go on behind the scenes. This is a beautiful book. This is a great campaign setting. I love it. Basically in Eberron, if you can think of it in D&D, it's in here and then some. Like the plains that are full of dinosaurs. My 3.5 edition character was a druid, and she had a velociraptor familiar who had little saddlebags, and he called him Cuddles the Wonder Dino, and that's a true story. But this is the 5th edition Eberron. This is the original 3.5. As you can see, I still have mine. I love this. This is fantastic. I'm so excited. I think I'm probably going to run 5th edition D&D this year using Eberron, and maybe some things behind me has some inspiration. But, there we go. Eberron for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons is my number 3 favorite thing. This is number 3. Can you imagine what's ahead of this, that this is number 3? Am I crazy? Probably. I still got a cold. I might have a bit of a fever. I'm on drugs. Number 2 is Zweihander, the revised core rulebook. So basically, there was an edition before this. This is a little bit more fleshed out. This is a big book. This is over 600 pages. Zweihander comes direct from Zweihander Grim and Perilous Studios. I'm going to link below. There are so many different ways to get this book. It is everywhere now. and it is gaining a lot of traction. This started off as a homebrew Warhammer Fantasy RPG world on their fan site. And over the last 10 years or so, Daniel, the guy that created this, has definitely expanded it and did that. I'm going to link directly to the Vintage RPG podcast episode where they talk about this, because that was the episode that I listened to that I knew I just had to go and get this. This is grimdark fantasy RPG, and it's fantastic. The art inside is wonderful. It's gritty. It definitely has that like Renaissance era feel to it. The Witcher just came on Netflix a few weeks ago. Watching The Witcher made me want to play this very hard. The neat thing about character creation, if you do it the proper way, you don't get to pick your stats, you don't get to pick your race, you don't get to pick your class. Your fate is not your own. So basically, when you roll a character, you have to play that. Now, as you keep playing, you have the opportunity to advance the way that you see fit, as you can kind of control your future a little bit. But this is crazy. Combat is deadly, you don't want to get into a fight, and there's very little magic to heal you. So if you get hurt in a fight, you're probably going to be out of action for a little while. There are lots of new source books coming out for this as well. A player's handbook, which is a little bit thinner than this, cuts out a lot of the game master stuff. That way players can have not a workout every time they pick this book up. This is a beautiful book. I think this is fantastic. I'm a big fan of this game. I can't wait to run it or play it. There's just so much to this. And so many classes. It's nuts. So this is my number 2 favorite thing that I've picked up for tabletop RPGs in 2019. What's number 1 going to be? Number 1, my favorite tabletop RPG supplement or book that I picked up in 2019 is The Masks of Nyarlathotep, or Nyarlathotep, depending on how you want to say it. This is the new edition of this. I think this is the 5th edition for the 7th edition of Chaosium's world-famous Call of Cthulhu RPG. I have played in Masks once before. It's probably my favorite campaign that I've ever been part of, and I'm looking forward to very likely running this in the very near future for my group. This is big. This is 2 full-size source books, plus this is all just... Get back in there. This is all just the handouts and the papers and the newspaper clippings. There's also a DM's guide, or a Dungeon Master, Game Master, Storyteller screen that just lists all the NPCs and where they are and what they're doing. This is considered one of the greatest campaigns in RPG history. It is massive, it is globe-trotting, you're fighting cultists and stopping them from releasing one of the old ones. This campaign has everything. This campaign, this specific edition, also is considerably easier to run. It leaves a lot more breadcrumbs for characters, as some of the previous editions, characters can get mired down and lost very easily. This also is a little bit more aware of the times, and previous editions were a little bit not so woke. Very few female characters, very few characters of color who were not the bad guys. This kind of brings it up to a more modern time, still keeping in the themes of the horror, but just more aware of where we are now in the beginnings of 2020. This is fantastic. I am so glad to have this. This is going to be a monster to run, and just the slipcase itself is absolutely gorgeous. These books are amazing. They're well laid out. They have the little ribbon bookmarks in there. It's just insane. And this is one of the original covers for the old Masks campaign. But just so much going on in this campaign. It's going to be very difficult to run. There are support groups on Facebook for game masters of this campaign. That is how crazy it is. Where you can go in there and ask questions or get some advice on what to do next, or even how to run this monster campaign. Very few campaigns are this big, this in-depth. I'm going to be very excited to run this for my players, and I think you should be too. Well, that's it. That's the first video here for Shane Loves Games. Just a little introduction, just kind of a feel of how things are going to be going forward. I'm hoping to do more videos very soon. I hope you like this video. This is really kind of a test to see, do you like this format? I used to have a channel where I would review action figures. That channel is no more. I don't plan on revisiting it anytime soon. And in fact, I've taken most of those videos down because of the apocalypse. I don't want YouTube making money off something and not me. So, that being said, going forward, 2020 is the year of Shane Loves Games. I hope you had fun. Please check out the links below. Support small and large businesses for RPGs. Let's keep this RPG train going for the next few years. I'm excited. I hope you are too. Just remember, folks, there's always a bigger fish.